And we'll get started with our week 2 lecture. As I pointed out in our week 2 announcement, oh, is it freezing there, Sarah? It's pretty cold here too. No snow though. Whenever we get to Sunday of this week, we'll actually be at the 50% mark in our class. So you could say that we're almost halfway finished with our class when we get to Sunday. So everybody, please stay up to date. Keep those assignments turned in so that you don't get behind. Just a few announcements. Good job on the discussion boards. I wanted to point that out because I've been reading some great things. I like the postings that you're doing and the responses that you're giving to your fellow classmates. Also, I wanted to point out here on number 2, the Tulsa EduCare field trip had to be canceled due to a conflict of meetings. So we are rescheduling that. For those of you that are in the Tulsa area or the surrounding area, you're welcome to come to the Tulsa EduCare tour on Tuesday, March 1st at 3:30 instead of 3 o'clock. Oh, you can hear Lita? That's funny. I can't hear though. But you can't hear me, Lita. Can everybody else hear me okay? Let me turn this up just a little bit too. My volume was down a little bit. There we go. Maybe that will help. Okay, so be sure nobody shows up at Tulsa EduCare next Tuesday. We had to change it to March 1st, so please mark your calendars for that. It'll be a great tour. I can't tell you enough how amazing EduCare is. They're building their classrooms. I love the curriculum that they use. It's a really fantastic example of a great child development center. So I hope you can be there. I also I like to bring this tip up from time to time. If any of you use Gmail, you may or may not have noticed in the upper right-hand corner, there's this little symbol. Here, I'll point at it, see if you can get it. It looks like 9 little dots, almost like a telephone keypad. And if you click on that, you will get this whole menu down here. You have the option from Gmail, from your email, of using Google Search, Google Drive, where you can store documents. Google Docs is also in there so that you can type up documents using Google Docs. I know some of you use that. And there's Miss Maria. Hi, Maria. You get her name down. But a fantastic part of Gmail is their calendar option. I love my Gmail calendar. It helps me so much. In fact, whenever we're scheduling things within CCC, we just send each other Google Calendar invites so that it will automatically put that time and day on your calendar. It's a great way to schedule things. Or if I had, as a student, if I had an assignment due, I could type that in on my calendar when it was due, and it will send me an email that day reminding me of that due date. So it's a great way to keep track of your assignments. I also put my kids' activities on there, so whatever you need to help manage your life, manage the household, you might check it out if you've never tried it. So if you have a Gmail account, you automatically have access to these free things, Google Docs, Google Calendar, and you might want to start sort of exploring it. Also, let me see, try not to fall behind. We're in the springtime now in February. It's still kind of cold, so we stay in a lot. But don't get caught up in Netflix and forget that you have assignments due, right? I love my Netflix. Currently watching a British series called Doc Martin, and it is hilarious. So put that on your list of things to do. How did I know I read your mind, Bailey. I knew it. Okay, Okay, next are student questions of the week, and I got to tell you, I'm starting to love these things. You don't have time to watch, Sarah. I understand that too. Exactly. I can't watch regular TV because I can't just be tied down to a certain time when something's on, but I can totally do Netflix when I have that free hour or whatever. I can watch something. So student question of the week. Somebody asked, they said, I'm moving. Can I do my externship in another state? You sure can, no problem. Here's the thing, as a community college student, you do have to reside in certain states when you begin as our student. We only have a license in certain states. So as long as we have a license in your state when you start, you're fine. After that, if you move to a different state, it's not a problem. You can continue as a distance education student. So we really do have a student that may in the future be moving back to Puerto Rico. I was concerned that we couldn't do that, you know, but we can. So she'll be possibly living in Puerto Rico at about the time it's time to do her externship, and we will be arranging the externship long distance. I won't be able to do a site visit on that, and I'm kind of bummed out. I really think they should fly me to Puerto Rico. So it's not going to happen, though. So I'll have to do everything through the computer. And, you know, since it's so distant, one thing that we can do is talk to them through the computer. We could use a webcam for them to give me a virtual tour of their facility so that I can see, or we could use FaceTime. So there's lots of different things we can do. So yes, you can do it in another state. The most important thing is we want you in a good ECE related occupation. Maybe working in a public school, working in a daycare, working in a preschool. There's lots of opportunities out there, and if you're unsure if a job would count toward an ECE externship, talk to us about it. Stephanie Lawrence can contact the company, find out more information, and we'll see what we can do. Externship is a way for you to get great experience, but it's also a great way to get a foot in the door. So maybe you have a place you really want to work. You can do an externship there. It's free to them. You're basically free labor. And you get that experience and then hopefully get hired on. That's what we shoot for. So exactly, Sarah, exactly. So you can use it lots of different ways. So there you go. You're moving. It's okay. You can do it in another state. That will work. Okay. Chapter 1 is what we're going over this week. And please, again, pay attention to the books that we're using. This week we're in the Developmentally Appropriate Practice book, Chapter 1. And let's get started here. We've talked a little bit about developmentally appropriate practice. And after I've said that about 3 times, it becomes a tongue twister. So I've probably just shortened it down to DAP, D-A-P. They are basically developmentally appropriate practice programs that are based on the accumulation of data and facts about what children are like. So we've done lots of research on how children develop, how they grow, how they learn. The programs are designed for young children and based on what is known or what we have discovered about young children. The early childhood educators that are presenting developmentally appropriate practices must be steeped in child development knowledge, and that's what we're doing to you right now, is we're steeping you in this knowledge. We want you to be pretty solid with your background so that you understand what's going on with these kiddos. Children must be considered in the context of, and this is a very important thing, their family, their culture, their community, their past history, what they've gone through, and their present circumstances. So DAP, we're talking about the whole child and not just one part, right? All the things that go into making this kiddo the unique little kiddo they are, right? So what is the DAP teacher? It's a guide, not a guard, and I want you to think back to teachers that you may have had growing up, maybe in preschool, maybe you don't remember preschool. A lot of us don't. Maybe it will be grade school teachers, and you may have had one that was more of a guard or an authoritative figure, right? So a DAP teacher, though, acts more of a guide for a child, helping them discover things. What is learning? Learning is a journey, not a destination. So we're not going to get there today. We're just going to work towards that. What is discovery? The discovery for a DAP teacher: questioning the answers, not answering the questions. So we're not telling them to look at the red balloon. We're asking them if they can find things in the room that are the color red, and maybe letting them point to them. So they're discovering this thing. What's the process? Discovering ideas, not covering content. What is the goal? To open minds, not closed issues. So it's a very broad curriculum. What is the test? Oh, that word. Being and becoming, not remembering and reviewing, because you know what those tests are like: A, B, C, D, true and false. So we're teaching them about being a human, about being a good person, and becoming each day. What is the school? Whatever we choose to make it. So very open, very free there. And that is by Alan A. Glotthorn. What is the teacher? Some of the principles, and I'm not going to read these word for word because this same PowerPoint is under week 2 of our course page. You're welcome to go through and read them. The basic principles are development, again, very broad. Think of this. We're learning about physical, social, emotional, cognitive, which is thinking, that they're all interrelated, and basically everything that happens to a child becomes part of them. Many aspects of children's learning and development are focused on sequences, and I know some of you brought up the idea on the discussion boards of beginning with a foundation. So if you think of children learning as a pyramid, see if I can get my pyramid up there. That bottom part, the foundation, that's what you're working on with them. You're working on those basic skills: colors, numbers, descriptive words, maybe a little bit of reading. So you're working on that base foundation that's going to affect everything else that happens to them as they build on that foundation. That's why you're so important. Development and learning proceed at varying rates from child to child. We've talked about this. Each of us are special, as well as uneven rates across different childs of a child's individual functioning. So the reason why that second part is brought up is maybe you've got one child that's a really quick learner. They catch on really fast, and they pick up words or they pick up colors, and then all of a sudden they go through a phase where they're not learning as fast. Well, it's not necessarily a red flag. It's just the fact that they can't stay at that same rate constantly. They can't always develop at the same rate. So sometimes not only are we seeing variances among the different children in the class, but we can see variances among the same child as well, year to year. A little bit more about basic principles of development. Development and learning requires results from a dynamic and continuous interaction, biological maturation and experience. So basically that's just biology and growth of the mind, growth of the body. Early experiences have huge effects on us. And in another one of my classes, some of you guys may not have been in this class yet, but I talk about the idea of what you loved when you were 5 years old. Because they say that if you think back to the things that you truly loved when you're 5 years old, this is the magic age, that tends to be the things that you are drawn back to as an adult. So that's an example of how an early experience has a profound effect on you and can change your life, sort of in this undertone. So what happens is that when I think back to my 5-year-old person, that is when I was on a farm. Now, as I was growing up through my teenage years, when I lived in town, I hated the idea of living on a farm. I didn't want to do that. Although I loved it as a child, I loved the horses. And now, as an adult, I find out I'm living on a farm again because that's what I was drawn to. So maybe you had a similar experience as you think about it. Because it's fun. It is fun. It's not as fun in the winter, though, is it, Sarah? I hate having to go out and feed when it's snowy or cold. I know, but I know they're hungry. In the summer, it's awesome. It is. Or in the spring or the fall. Frozen bottles, yes. We had to deal with frozen chicken food, or chicken pond the other day. So we had to break it up. And, of course, the ducks get cranky when the pond's frozen as well. Ducks will swim in any weather. They don't care. So if I chop up their little pond, they will swim in there with the ice even. Development proceeds toward greater complexity. So it starts off not as complex, fairly simple, again, building the foundations, but then development becomes more and more complex with time, self-regulation. They learn how to control their emotions, how to control their actions. Let me see here. I think we've got an example. Here's an example of DAP, developmentally appropriate practice. Here's an example. A spiral notebook with an attached pen accessible to children is located by where the parents sign in daily so that the children can choose to sign in too if they wish. And I love the ideas of this. So mom or dad are signing the child in, and they can write their name. You know, it may just be up and down lines, but it's giving that experience. So that is a developmentally appropriate practice. It's something they can do. It's telling them they're welcome in the environment. It conveys that they're being thought of. They're part of the process. They're getting to imitate what their caregiver does. Serves as a literacy activity because they are drawing sort of word-like symbols, and it eliminates waiting with nothing to do. I believe I've got a picture here. Here we go. Here we have signing in. So look on the left. Signing in for the toddlers is more like scribbling on a piece of paper, right? And they've even got a little marker. I hope it's washable. Whereas signing in on the right, we've got a little boy that looks like he's, what, maybe 3 or 4, and he's starting to learn how to write his name. I love this. They put the names down the left-hand side of the paper, and on the right-hand side, where it can be erased every day, they get to write their actual name. So that's great practice, and they get to work to write on the whiteboard, and kids love to do this. So there's different ways you can do that. And then down below, here's an example of tracing their name. And this would be for older kiddos. For 4s and 5s, it's a great practice. Or connecting the dots as well. Okay, so those are all developmentally appropriate practices. Okay, next, basic principles. Continued. Children develop best when they're secure, when they're feeling positive about the people that they're around. They develop learning is influenced by their multiple social and cultural contexts, so how they're learning at home or how they have been raised. Have they been very active with the adults in their life? Have they been more off to the side? You know, it's different family to family. always mentally active and seeking to understand the world around them. Children learn in a variety of ways. And you know how curious they are, and they're always taking things in, whether it be words, symbols, whether it be movies that are on the TV. Oh, you got to watch those movies because we don't want them getting too much too soon. And they really do understand a little more of what's going on than we realize. And the kids go to school and they tell the teachers about what we watched on TV last night. Trust me. We learn so much from the children the next day at school. Play is important with developmentally appropriate practices. Of course, we want to emphasize play. Development and learning advance when they're challenged to achieve the level just beyond their current mastery. So say you know that they know all letters of the alphabet, which is a pretty big step right there. That might be for a 4 or 5-year-old. They know all the letters of the alphabet. What we want to do is then challenge them with maybe 2- and 3-letter words. They can start practicing some words. However, we don't want to throw them into writing a 10-letter word that's going to be painstaking, that's going to be frustrating. So we don't want to push them beyond too much. Children's experiences shape their motivation, their persistence, initiative, flexibility are all very important things as well. So how do we make our classroom more developmentally appropriate? And we've talked about some of these things in our discussion boards and our assignments. So what should we have? We should have an art area that's open throughout the day, including a variety of collage materials if they are available. And I know some teachers, this is hard to understand, that they should always have access to art and always be able to go over there. Maybe you're having story time and you really want the child to focus on the book, on the pictures, but perhaps you've gone beyond that child's limit, or they're just not interested in the book. It would be just fine for them to be able to go over to the art area and play with the art supplies and create something. So letting them sort of choose. So have that available. Play-Doh should always be a choice for children. And why do you think it's important for Play-Doh to always be a choice? What can you learn or develop with Play-Doh? You guys give me some ideas. Building, yes. Definitely, you can build. Sensory, being able to touch the Play-Doh, being able to smell it, learning not to eat it. Using their imagination, that's right, Katrina. Yeah. What else? Can you guys think of other things that we can do with Play-Doh? Colors? Yeah, you could definitely talk about the different colors. Match with the letters, the child traces over them. Oh yeah, definitely. You can cut. That's right. Shapes. What muscles are being worked when we use Play-Doh? The hands, fingers, that's right. And the wrist. And what are those considered? What are the fingers and the hands considered? What type of skills? Motor, yes. Get more specific. So our big muscles are our gross motor skills, and our little muscles are what? Do you guys remember? What type of motor skills are fingers? Bailey's getting ready to write something, I can tell. Or the cat's going across the keyboard. I don't know, Bailey. I just know somebody's, oh, okay. Had no idea, just listening. Obedience, but not eating. Okay, so if you're using your fingers, it would be fine motor skills. So you have gross motor skills, which are those big muscles kids use outside when they run and play and jump. And then you've got those fine motor skills that they practice, and Play-Doh is fantastic at building these fine motor skills. If you have a child that is having a hard time learning how to hold a crayon or a pencil, give them Play-Doh, because it's just stiff enough that they really have to work to get that going, and it can really help increase that fine motor dexterity that we're working on. So Play-Doh is very important. Also, place a child-sized broom by the sand table or wherever it might get messy so that they can learn self-help skills, learning to clean up. Make sure tissues and paper towels are accessible to children so that they do not have to rely on adults for them. I've seen different teachers handle this different ways. If it's in a public school, lots of times the tissue box will be at the back of the room so that class isn't interrupted. And for preschools, sometimes they're sort of scattered all over, but the most important thing is that the kids can reach them and easily get to them to help take care of themselves as well. Sand or water play should be available every day. And if you've ever had some experience with evaluations in early childhood centers, you know that ITERS is one of the typical tools that we use for evaluation. And on the ITERS list is there a sand and water table. So they do want this at every daycare center. Very important, very good skills. Also use conflicts between children as opportunities for learning and problem solving. Oh, good, Lita. You can hear me okay? Did you have to go out and come back in a few times? I saw a few people leave. So here's an example of using a developmentally appropriate practices in the classroom. We've got a child helping to clean up over here, little girl. So she's being very independent, getting to help in the classroom, and kids love to be able to help in the classroom. I think I told you guys before, whenever I substitute, or I used to substitute at my child's school, one of the things I would do is I would always bring one of those round containers of Lysol wipes, and there was one that had sort of the scratchy surface on one side, and then smooth on the other. So I would bring the little wipes, and if everybody finished their activities, I would then give each child a wipe, and they would clean down their desk really good. And desks get incredibly gross, just black that would come off on those wipes. But the kids love to do it, and then once they're done with their desk, they want to clean the walls in the classroom, they want to clean the floor. You kind of got to tame them back down. But it's a great opportunity, and the teachers that I subbed for loved it as well, because they would come back to a clean classroom. Okay, over here we've got a listening center with headphones, chairs that are the appropriate size for your children. So this is an older age group. And down here you've got a playground, again, appropriate for the development of the child and for the age of the child. So we've got a smaller slide, we've got a playhouse, and sometimes maybe a teeter-totter here and a ball, so they can all have fun. Here we have some more examples. We've got tables that are low enough for the children, and if any of you have ever gone into a 2-year-old classroom, oh my goodness, the size of those tables, they are just barely off the floor. And they have little tiny chairs that go with it. So whenever we go to Tulsa Educare, you'll need to pay attention to the size of some of the play equipment with the 2-year-olds and the 3-year-olds. Now the teachers, you have to squat down a little bit more to get to those chairs, but the point is it's not for you, it's for them. Here we have another teacher talking at an art center with children. And here we have fantastic cups. You can wash these cups. You can do activities with them, but you can use them over and over again. They love stacking them. They make a little bit of noise, but not bad when they fall. So this is a great, fairly cheap investment you can make. Our solo cups. Okay, common misunderstandings. There's only one way to carry out developmentally appropriate practices. That's not true. There's lots of ways. Developmentally appropriate classrooms are unstructured. No, they're not. They have a lesson plan. They know what's going to go down that day. Teachers teach minimally or not at all in developmentally appropriate classrooms, and that's not true. Teachers are the guide, remember. We're not ruling the classroom and telling everybody what to do. We're guiding them through their development. Developmentally appropriate programs do not include academics. That's not true. They're just snuck in the form of fun. Developmentally appropriate programs are only effective for particular populations, usually assumed to be typically developing white middle-class children. No, 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 not at all. They're for everyone. Remember our broad spectrum that we reach out through there. In developmentally appropriate classrooms, there is no way to tell if a child is learning. Remember in our last class, those of you that were here for ECE 103, and you used the checklist to assess if a child is learning. We could do the same thing in a developmentally appropriate classroom. And what I like about the checklist is that we can pick one appropriate to the child, to their age, to their developmental processes, and to the skills that we're teaching in particular as well. Developmentally appropriate practice can be achieved simply by acquiring certain kinds of toys and materials. That's not true. We want to give them the supplies, but that doesn't mean it's automatically going to happen. DAP uses no goals or objectives. No, we do use goals and objectives and lesson plans. The DAP practice, the curriculum, is child development, which is a little bit true. Part of it is connected to child development. Development appropriate is just one in a sequence of changing trends in education. It's not a trend, it's the base. This is where all the other ones started. Okay, making your classroom more developmentally appropriate. Again, some more tips. The easel should be around easily every day, the art easel. Do not force children to participate in activities. Give them choices. Bring in real objects for exploration. Do activities in small groups versus large groups, because we sometimes lose our children a little bit in those large groups. Do not cut out the patterns for children. We want them to do the whole project because you learn so much from that cutting experience. Allow children to do what they can for themselves. We're wanting to help them. Here we go. To assist in your planning, and I want you to think to your lesson plan here and your activities that you're going to be developing for your final project. We want to consider, and I'm not going to go through all of these. Like I said, this is on our course webpage. I'll just point out the most important ones. When we do an activity, we want to know, is it on their level? Are we encouraging them? Is this causing them to explore, to push a little bit past what they already know? Are most of the experiences hands-on because they love hands-on? Are they having choices? Is it diverse? Do they reflect the goals and the philosophy of the center? Or just a few things you might ask yourself. Now, here are some of the results of using inappropriate practices. Non-developmentally appropriate practices can have an effect, a big effect on a child's self-esteem, on their self-control, on their stress level, and later on in academics. And what this makes me think of, guys, remember when we were talking about learning experiences in schools, and if you had a bad experience with a subject, it may affect how you feel about it later on in life, and math was a big one. Several people brought up experiences that they had with a math teacher that maybe it was stressful, it wasn't fun, and it caused them to sort of shut down and not want to go into these math classes. So if we're using practices that are developmentally appropriate, that are on the development of the individual child, they will not experience these things. Not being able to do a project. Maybe you've planned an art activity that's a little too advanced for your age group. Children may have hurt feelings over this. They may feel like they're not good enough. So you really have to take time to think about it and make sure it's going to be right. Oh, what did you say, Lita? You was in a classroom where some kids did not participate in some of the activity time. That's true. Some may not even want to. Maybe they're not interested in that activity. And that's okay again. Remember, it's good to have another area that they can go to. And they can participate over there, or maybe they need some alone time. So we want to keep that flexible. Are there any questions right now? We made it through Chapter 1 of Developmentally Appropriate Practices. I think everyone was here for this. Be sure that you do mark your calendars that we will not be having our field trip next Tuesday. It will be March 1st instead. We have, after the Sunday, 2 weeks left in our class, so you might want to start working on that final project. I know some of you have already. Oh, okay, gotcha, Sarah. That'd be great. And also realize I had another person ask me a question this week about using PowerPoint to do the final project, and that would be great. There'd be no problem with using PowerPoint to put in your lesson plan, your activity web, your concept web, and what was the other thing? The weekly plan. So you can definitely use PowerPoint to build those. Just have one on each slide. That'd be great. Okay, does anybody have any questions? Woo! What a busy night. What a busy week, right? Does anybody else have kids that's running back and forth to different activities this time of year? We've had weightlifting going on. We've had basketball. It'll soon be track season. 4-H. Oh, yeah, 4-H will start. That's right. I love 4-H. Totally. So your son can get sleep. Oh, I know, Jessica, sometimes it helps to have those activities. It sort of wears them down, doesn't it? Yeah, you're right. And just a hectic week, huh, Lita? I understand that as well. Hang in there, okay? We can do it. If you guys get bogged down, be sure to give me a call, send me an email. Shoot me a Facebook message and let me know if I can help out, okay?